So I've just gotten an update. We're trying to jump into the game right now, and it seems like the match between Baad and Meow is going to be a little bit different. Apologies, something went wrong with the spectator privileges, so I think we're only going to be able to see one hand at a time. We're trying to get that situation rectified as soon as we can, but for one reason or another, technology, we are unable to see both sides, so we're just going to have to spectate this from the perspective of the Swordcraft player Meow, and only speculate on what can happen on Baad's side. So, what are we thinking?
This is just like my ladder games. Then I can just complain about the best play possible, and it'll happen, right?
It'll happen. We'll see. What do you think is Meow's kind of strategy and game plan? Knowing what cards Meow has in hand now, how is this game going to move forward, Envy?
Well, I think I know how this game will move forward. I think it's just going to be how much early game damage Meow can get in, and then how easy it'll be to close with Albert. I'll let Mofu take. How do you think this is going to end, Mofu?
Well, something that I remember is that Meow's list with the Floral Fencer we see here is tacked to be able to win when it goes second. Meaning I think Meow has a lot of a mindset that is set against playing versus players who are going to take initiative off of him. And that's just simply not the case with Baad. So I think that this will all come down to whether or not Baad is able to, as you said, stay ahead of all the early game damage, so as to have the safety to just simply mount threats to force Meow to start trading later rather than going face. But that's not happening, actually. We're seeing a lot of initiative coming out of Meow here.
True. It's kind of what Meow needs to do, seeing as he'll be down a card the whole game at the very least, and now down at least 2 from the Pure-Hearted Singer. He will never have the card advantage needed to grind this out, which isn't going to happen anyway against Control Blood. So,
where I think this is a very hard question that Meow has asked this Mars, as well as the Hedgehog, are both very, very difficult followers to leave alive here. And
I'm actually glad that Blood Moon was played there. I was going to mention that Sword probably doesn't want to, get them in Vengeance, right? Because that's bad, but Blood Moon exists anyway. So, ooh, gosh.
Very defensive roundtable there.
That is the opposite of the roundtable that you want. But I guess just putting bodies on the board, is just good. It's what you need to be doing.
Now, I've just made the observation, actually, that is the only roundtable that Meow can pull, except in the opposite order, as Meow does not run Princess Juliet. Instead, he runs the Novice Troopers in order that he can always get that result. And I think this matchup is not where we're going to see that work out in his favor.
Right. And then the Sabar coming down, healing while destroying 2 followers, is just gonna be a thorn in Meow's side.
Well, Scarlet Sabor at the very least can somewhat feed this Hedgehog a little bit more damage. All of it counts.
That is the silver lining, I guess, of anything. However, no matter how big it gets, it can just die to Revelation, since it can never be above 8 health.
I mean, Meow's ability to play around Baad's reactive options is heavily restricted by this Blood Moon.
Don't imagine a Revelation will come down this turn, though. This is... If that was against Blood right now, I could imagine... Oh, Righteous Devil. I was gonna say that, just about to say that. That would be the worst possible thing ever. Righteous Devil into, Vampiric Kiss or Diabolic Drain would be the worst thing to happen right now.
Double Vampire, or a single Vampiric Kiss, I think, would be, the absolute punchline here. Back to 17. No cards left on the side of Meow. And a Floral Fencer at best to show for it. So,
and it's possible that a Mask of Black Death. So that actually sort of telegraphs that there's more than one Mask of Black Death in hand.
Indeed.
So interesting that comes down. Jinno was a great top deck. I thought Jinno was a great play there, but apparently Meow does agree. He just thinks that he wants to put some storm damage on the board as well. I guess getting the mask off the board in the same turn is probably much better than putting some one on the board.
Allows Meow to both break the mask and save the evolve point, so I think Meow is putting it all on the ability to draw Albert soon. Some kind of finisher, but if what you said was true and Baad was just showing us that she has more, then I think that this just spells out such a bad position for Meow to be in. Though funnily enough, I think seeing some of the disadvantage come from Meow's the way that this deck is teched out, with some cards like Lancer or Kahalan being a card that is especially effective at coming back during tempo losses versus aggressive decks, or Floral Fencer with the very same thing, and we're not seeing that. Like, this is a very, very valuable hit for Lancer, but it's also not very significant against Baad at all.
Right, exactly. Also, this play, Meow's going into 9 play points next turn, and he could have played Alweda's to kind of advertise, you know, like, hey, I'm holding an Albert, you better heal or something, you know, but he didn't. So now Baad knows that there's not really a threat next turn. If this board is cleared, she knows she can't die, so...
And there's a lot of possible approaches to this. Very small chunks of removal, such as Vampiric Kisses or the otherwise. Playing a Sabrur or something along those lines. There's a lot of very clean and low-risk ways to deprive the board, or deprive Meow of the board, and thus ask a very difficult question of how much damage can be done with so few cards.
Right. Playing this matchup is a lot like trying to catch a Chansey in the Safari Zone. You kind of have to let the Blood player get lulled into a sense of security, and then throw the Pokeball, the Albert evolve. You know, with like one card in your hand, or just top deck it. You know, like a truly skilled player. But you don't want to scare them into healing too much. So.
Right. Unfortunately, there's no way to inflict paralysis and make Baad unable to play answers.
Right, yes. There's no... You can't throw a rock at Baad
to poison Baad, make Baad take damage over time for an Albert setup. Really, this all just comes down to combat damage for me.
These are some good ideas. Write this down. Oh my gosh.
Good
Poison
mechanics
in
for
Shadowverse. I like it.
I mean, Rose is kind of like that.
Kinda.
Mars and Alweda's, like...
Yeah, Mars Alweda's. Getting back to the game that matters. Mars Alweda's is pretty good, but it pretty much gets rid of every resource that you have, so...
Like, I keep getting this feeling from all these plays that Mars Alweda's is such a good turn 9. It's such a good turn 2 combo. And Baad really is not going to care about it, I feel.
Nope.
Especially
Meow
considering
actually opting not to put Baad in Vengeance. Interesting.
I feel that the decision to leave Baad out of Vengeance really is it's a play that I think is made out of what I sense as fear. Because Revelation, should Baad go for it, would still clear this and leave Meow in an equally bad position. But putting them into Vengeance outside of considerations of Revelation simply means that Meow doesn't want to eat an aggressive card like Ephemera or something and give it a double trade. But I think either way, it's just such a tough spot to be in.
Top deck's a Novice Trooper. Really not much that can be done here, though.
We see the infamous Mars Floral Fencer, which has taken ahead in the past and has a great trade here, but once again is just not what Meow needs. Unfortunately, 15 cards in with no Albert is a pretty painful feeling for Sword. Also, if the Floral Fencer comes down, it would probably have to evolve to be any use, realistically. And if it does, then Meow's out of cards for the rest of the game, so... A tough
so
spot
if you're Meow, Mofu, if you're Meow, how do you win this game, Mofu? What do you do this turn? What do you do the opposite the next turn? Say you're gonna top deck Albert next turn. Say your next card is Albert. What do you do this turn?
Well, that would mean that there's no evolve that can come out here. I think Meow's actually about to do what I would imply, which is perhaps throw out the Floral Fencer, but not use an evolve, and send all of this face. The 5/5 body at most is going to threaten a trade. It's not really going to end the game. There's no sitting spawn or anything that could kill Meow for this. But I think the Floral Fencer is necessary, because assuming Baad has a board clear in the first place, then no amount of commitment, I feel, would make that different. I think it still drains Meow to a point where they would just play the card that they conserved in their hand and then still lose. So if they go all in, then they take the risk of Baad not having one. It's not like she's in Vengeance. And then if a single attacker gets through, and Baad also doesn't heal. Just has a handful of fighters for some reason. Then the Albert top deck would be game. But
Right.
I don't say.
I do think that there was a merit for like perfect information being given by that, but I do agree with everything you just said. Fangblade Slayer, a great top deck for this. Oh my gosh.
A really big deal. I think there was not a better draw in Meow's situation. Even Caholen would not have set up an Albert in this light, but with this many cards in Baad's hand, I feel there has to be something in it that can defend against the Sky Knight Captain himself.
This is interesting though, because most things that Blood heals with, well, Mask is available, but most things that Blood heals with require a target. So like Saboir works, but you don't have access to Vampiric Kiss or Diabolic Drain. So, ugh.
Let's entertain the following idea,
Woo!
which I just lost. I was thinking if Meow draws Albert and decides to send it face anyway, and then draws Albert again, then I think even past this spawn there was a little bit of hope. But I don't think Council of Card Knights is quite going to do enough against the setup that Baad has discovered here.
That's lethal. 15.
Mm-hmm.
Easy. Every time. Oh my gosh.
Albert into Albert, wasn't it? Baad just simply had it. The familiar way that we've seen Baad playing so far, conservative, reactive, methodical.
What a closer.
All of that
what
pays
a
off.
Closer. When's the last time you've seen a spawn end a game, Mofu?
Well, I feel like ever since its debut, I have only seen it all the time, constantly. Or have I really even when it has ambush? But I really, like, it's not something that I see often because Control Blood, despite how Baad makes it look so powerful, is just not really a popular ladder pick at all. So it's not one of those lists that I'm used to losing to all the time like all the others.
True that, true that.
But Baad now moving to tournament, or to this match point, I think spells further bad news. It feels like a repeat of what we've seen before, where Baad currently may just approach this matchup similarly to how she approached Shadow earlier, but I think that works better versus Sword than otherwise. Grinding out Sword is no particular challenge, and I think the plethora of healing that Dragoncraft as a class has everywhere just always leaves it out of Albert range unless Meow finds just the perfect way to open this game. I think that is the reasoning behind that mulligan.
I definitely agree with all of that. Sword has a little bit of closing power in Albert, but even if you win with Sword, you've got to go back and win with Shadow, which you're never going to stick a board against these decks.
Right.
However, if Baad wins this, it doesn't actually result in a tournament win, since Baad is coming from the lower bracket. She has to win again, and so just as a bracket reset.
Ooh, Dragon Summoner is a very, very powerful response here. Ooh, and Meow unable to find anything to do with his second turn. I think that Dragon Summoner alone is just such a huge loss of tempo. Especially if Baad follows with something like an Ayala.
Ooh, into Ayala on curve. Nice. Okay, I like it.
So Meow may be looking forward to some kind of reverse tempo swing with the Floral Fencer soon. For now, perhaps pressured into using this Novice Trooper. I don't imagine to trade.
No. Never, never. Even though you're going second. Going second would incentivize you to trade a little bit, but you know that your opponent is playing an extremely grindy deck, and you don't want to trade or waste any damage, so...
So rough to see Sword forced into playing a value game in this circumstance, though. Blazing Breath. Going to
interesting that Baad chose to Blazing Breath and basically pass the turn instead of ramming the Ayala in. I guess she didn't care about ramping there.
I think it's very possible that Baad has a Sybil in hand, because we've seen Baad do this before, where she's not interested in ramping into Sybil if she doesn't have any other kind of massive play she's making. Just simply keeps her resources. And I suppose leaving Ayala up does tell Meow to deal with this, or it'll trade into something, and that's pressure you don't get. And Meow complies. In order to protect the 2/2 body, now having to fight for every point of damage, as he fears Baad moving on into any sort of recovery, but a Sybil here would heal due to that trade. So I suppose it would anyway.
True that, true that. Sybil is probably going to happen this turn, I agree. Like you said, we've seen Baad make the play before. Sybil would be great here.
you can visualize a lot of additional value from this Dragon Summoner. Yeah, we were right. In that it was able to stop the damage of an early Quick Blader, and now continues to remove pressure from what remains of this Floral Fencer. And in doing so, protects the Sybil.
Another Blazing Breath. Wow. Okay, so that kind of shows us why Blazing Breath was used so frivolously right there, because there were two of them available. So this puts Meow in a really weird spot. You gotta ram something into Sybil, and it's probably gonna involve and evolve. So.
Right.
I like keeping the Bane over the ward here. That's really nice. I like that.
So what particularly is this Bane looking to hit? I suppose now Baad is approaching her late game. There is Lucifer. No reason to play it out.
Really anything. As long as it hits anything, I think, is fine. Rahab even would be fine.
Breath of the Salamander is one big possibility for playing Rahab here.
Mofu. Caster Curson. However, Baad's in a really awkward spot where this doesn't happen all the time, but this deck is now running out of cards. She's not drawing any card draw, it seems, so...
Right. Now, this could all change if she slams something as significant as a Polyphonic Roar next turn. Something that just starts generating...
True.
But I think cards like Israfil or otherwise are actually within the reasonable realm of now to deal with.
True. Geno kind of not really doing much there. Just kind of pushing one face damage, unfortunately.
4 damage seems pretty significant to me. I imagine that trade wasn't made happily.
Right. And I mean, like you said, if Polyphonic Roar happens this turn, that's going to be a huge deal for Meow. Like, very hard to get rid of. And nothing, actually. Never mind. Okay.
I actually think that Baad, definitely, based on that, would have a Bahamut in hand. I think having a Bahamut in hand leads to confidence. That leads to not wanting to throw anything in, or not caring to. And also would explain why she isn't playing anything. Perhaps it's 3 Bahamuts. Perhaps her whole deck is Bahamuts.
Perhaps it's 3 Bahamuts. Yeah, actually, Schrodinger's Bahamut. Could be 3, could be 0.
And this Council of Card Knights, plus the evolve point that it would be stealing from Albert, is the only way to deal with a Bahamut.
Oh, a Grimner! I forgot that Baad ran Grimners. This is unironically great. Just gets rid of the board and also sets up a ward.
Solid. I don't think that forces a evolution at all from Meow. Lots of ways to deal with this. I think Front Guard General is a comfortable slam.
For sure.
Geno is a very, very strong way to deal with this. Very efficient, leaves a lot behind, and getting in those ticks from the Knight now that this is Sword we're talking about, approaching turn 9 with an evolution point, a single tick of damage could matter very much in the long run. Assuming Baad has some way to heal, that means that the Novice Trooper, combined with the Knights, combined with the Council of Guard Knights, plus one more source of damage could give Albert a way to find a lethal throughout this matchup. So a big question we must observe is whether or not Baad can find a way to win the game in the time it takes Meow to set that up.
Probably. Realistically, Baad's win condition at this point is to, and has always been actually, to just grind out Meow's resources. So as long as Baad can stay, there's the roar. That's
I imagine that would
actually pretty ballsy. Okay, never mind. Blazing Breath. The third Blazing Breath coming down. So even though Albert is playable, she's not killable by him. So.
Right. This Albert, there was in a lot of damage though. I think Meow has an incredible opportunity to play Albert. Because that is all.
Actually, I disagree completely. I think Council of Card Knights, because Bahamut can't be played now, or even Front Guard General, fine. That's okay too. Because Bahamut can't be used anymore, well, realistically it can, but it'll pop your Polyphonic Roar. I think popping the Albert was, because if you do that, this dragon can just evolve over that, and then 10 play points are still available, so.
That is true. I think getting the damage in when the opponent is in that single window of slowness as they try to get their first piece of value, like the first dragon, it would make sense, but this Front Guard General and the Council of Card Knights you suggested, I think all of them were really interesting lines of play that Meow could have taken.
That's true. No, yeah, okay.
I agree with saving the evolve point and not using Albert, though. I think that is perfectly fine.
Perhaps, I hate to just rush in there like, no, I disagree. Zeus! Oh my gosh.
Now, Zeus lends a lot of credence to holding onto the Council of Card Knights. Albert is a very poor answer to this if he didn't have that left.
Ooh, Geno is actually a great top deck bear.
Geno would do a wonderful job dealing with this.
Just needs to push a little bit more damage, and then Albert can win.
If he doesn't need the Knights, he could play Mars, Novice Trooper into Geno to get rid of the Enhance. That pushes the extra 2 damage. Mars would offer its effect to Geno, so that is a full board going face. Yes, that does set up Albert.
That's pretty good.
Bahamut, I like that play a lot. It's a pretty picture-perfect sort of way to progress here, but we could also consider any other lines of play. I think I was going for it. I don't think the Knights from Geno are going to be that important here.
I mean, they could be. The Knights from the last Geno are proving to be pretty important, so... And it looks like Meow agrees.
Shooting in 2 damage? Okay. Well, actually, I see it. Another way to think about this is if these Knights survive and they do both get this proc off of Mars, then they are the equivalent of 2 damage if Baad doesn't do something about it, and we can equate saying do something about it to playing Bahamut, but I think a second Breath of the Salamander would be very brutal as a result. Because a Breath of the Salamander
would be great. Grimner would also be great. Oh no!
Okay. That gives me some context to say that the Albert play would have been quite weak.
Grimner also leaves behind a ward. He didn't just wipe your board, he also left behind a ward. Oh my gosh, that's disgusting. There's actually not much Meow can do now. Oh no.
So Council has to be played, right? You need that
Definitely, every time, yes.
So then how do you deal with the rest of this? The only other combinations of cards you can play that impact the board are Albert or the Whole Souled Swing with the Novice Trooper, the latter of which offers 4 damage, meaning that wouldn't be enough. Because
there's almost nothing you can do, because remember another dragon spawning next turn, so...
Let us... Is there any way to full clear here? Council of Card Knights. Sends 1 in. No, absolutely. Well, unfortunate, but interesting series of turns. It was very fun to actually try to cogitate through what Meow should have done. I think Meow realizes at this point. Polyphonic Roar just
nothing to do. Polyphonic Roar, Value Town.
An evolved Albert every turn, or the equivalent of one. Overtaking the ability to play Albert even once.
Feels bad, man.
Feels... it's puns everywhere. There's just puns everywhere right now. But Baad is going to be able to reset the bracket. And I feel like the prophesized story is coming true. The recess happened. This is, I think, only happened once before in a qualifier, and it might have been in a European qualifier as well. I had to kind of dig deep into my memory to pull that out, but could make the reset happen and take a first place finish all the way from the losers bracket. Here's what I want to know: who beat Baad in the first place? Why is Baad in the losers bracket? These decks are amazingly effective.
Probably some aggro player, some cheeky aggro player was like, "Oh, you're playing control decks, haha."
And then who killed the aggro player? This is the interesting.
Oh, it was
thing
Lexan.
To me.
Lexan did it.
Lexan did it earlier on.
That makes a lot of sense.
That makes a ton of sense because Lexan just had a bunch of combo decks and he probably had a great time. He probably had a great time. But that's so interesting. I feel like one of the most important things about these tournaments is kind of preparation and reading the field, right? And making sure that you kind of have a good kind of pulse on what's going on and what is going to happen in the tournament. And I feel like Baad is coming in with all the tools available. I mean, every single game does not necessarily look like a cakewalk, but it is always has kind of a good set of options to deal with any situation that comes down. And I just feel like this trajectory is getting faster and faster and faster towards taking the first place finish. I don't know if there's any alternative. What do you guys think?
We rammed it up this whole time. Control against mid-range grinds you out. There's not much you can do. I've already got the trophy. It's got Baad's name written on it. B-A-A-D.
Good spelling.
It's just, yeah. Yeah, Baad. It's the trophy's written there. I don't know. It's 100% her game. I don't see how she loses, honestly.
And I think for a new player coming into the season, that's what a way to kick it off, right? I mean, Baad doesn't even seem to be associated with any team or clan. I wonder if there's any out there like HSK or something like that looking to pick somebody up.
Those are the best ones, honestly. Like it's like if a team player can get in, that's great, obviously. But if someone who comes in alone does that, like obviously they might not have been alone. They could have practiced with teams or something, and then just not have the tag or whatever. But that's always cool to see somebody come in alone and do pretty well. So
alone. There's always the friends and family that knock them on in the back.
They could have friends. We don't know. They're not wearing a tag, so we don't know. But yeah.
Baad looking like the Han Solo of this tournament so far.
Han Solo, yeah.
Han Solo shot first. Okay.
Even Han Solo has a few buddies of his own,
Well, then again, I don't think Han Solo would be a control player. I take it back.
Han Solo would be.
He'd be aggro for sure.
No, I think he'd be combo. You know what I mean? He's like crafty and tricky and like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
So you know who is aggro is Kylo Ren. Okay, you know what? Let's not talk about some space galactic opera here.
At the moment, but
this is the Shadowverse Open, NV.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah, it's my fault. My bad. I'm sorry, guys. My fault.
Yeah,
my bad.
She fed me that joke actually.
Sorry. Scripted jokes. Scripted. Get it out of here. My bad.
The broadcast is falling apart. Help! Help, admin! Admin, please. The reset match is ready. Yeah, actually, the admin here. See, this is the thing. The admin here is like our caretaker. He like makes sure that we're well fed and that we have a place to sleep at night. That we have clothes to wear. Like cleans up after us. Makes sure we brush our teeth.
Yeah.
Basically, the admin is our parent.
He's your mom. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Bracket reset. Baad versus Meow. And I think the writing is on the wall. But if there's any time for Meow to make something happen, it's now. It's now.
It's right, Meow.
Jesus.
Thank you.
It had to be done.
I actually really want to do that. Well, although all of us may be packing up in the confident belief that Baad, who has had a non-stop win streak, I believe, so far, just coming in, just sweeping up mid-range as a matter of advantage. This is a card game still. There is still great variance. I think we could find one of these games where Meow could just draw that right hand, get that right amount of tempo, and Baad just doesn't manage to find her answers. That would have to be, I think, the only way that Meow could take this. I think that is certainly what he's open for.
True that. He is going first also in a game that going first is really good in, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. If we can equate going first to being handed the resource of damage and tempo, as opposed to Baad being handed the resource of reaction timing and additional draw, then I suppose Meow would have very little to do with the opposite side of resources. But this hand is looking good.
That is true.
2-drop into a sticky 3-drop, some ways to draw.
It's also, it's almost good that we can't see Baad's hand. We have to just assume what she could play every turn, right? Mm-hmm. I think that adds an extra layer to the spectator/commentator pie.
Makes Baad herself feel more like the boss fight, kind of like the end of story mode.
None of us have information. We're all here to watch Baad play the game.
Mm-hmm. This is her boss entrance where her name shows up in front of Blood Moon. Health bar still appearing. I think Meow's hand is starting to slow down. We are starting to see some things like curving into Saber Alter at best. Not very much is going to do a significant amount of damage. Maybe wants to draw a bit more. I think the key to this matchup, as we've seen so far, is definitely Board Flood, Catacomb to protect said Board Flood, and Akhtar to reach high amounts of damage to force Baad to play for healing.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Demon Eater even being passed up. Yeah, so Meow just wants this board to stay sticky. He doesn't want anything on this board to get removed, since we are going into Baad's Evolve turn. I also agree. I don't think that Dark Blade Fiend is the best development of a board, but it might be his only option, as I don't think he wants to pop the Chimera.
Mm-hmm. In its defense, Dark Blade Fiend does survive the damage reach of Diabolic Drain and the like. so it could end up being a pretty valuable resource later on.
Baad also giving Meow a pretty okay Lurching Corpse target. Not the best, since you know that Baad plays so many bombs. It's not like you kind of want to hit Lurching, or not, you want to hit a Righteous Devil every time, but you still get rid of a life drain follower, so.
This early game damage is still very important for Meow to find. And perhaps protecting something that has bodies behind it, like Bone Chimera. I see Meow as really like trying this out. I think the skip turn, despite the need to play for tempo, was a really interesting play just a few turns ago.
Right, I mean, drawing 2 cards was worth less to him than keeping Bone Chimera intact, and I also agree. I think that was great.
Turn 5, like, usually we'll see Baad try to answer whatever pressure's been put down with the Scarlet Tabur here, but that choice to leave up a Bone Chimera means that not very much damage gets taken off the board by that. Or, if she plays to remove damage and leaves the Bone Chimera up, then it's still a problem.
True that. Subwar, while she doesn't remove much, heals you for 2, though. So technically she does remove. She's a net gain. She's a gain 3, technically, on this board, so.
Ooh.
Just passes 5. Okay, alright.
Well, there's not a significant amount of damage being dealt here. Knows Meow doesn't run something that accelerates damage on a board like Cerberus, so it really just comes down to Yaktar to do that. So passes to turn 6 comfortably. I understand it.
True that. Not much is gonna happen, really, on the backswing anyway, so. Just gonna see a very, very modest board setup. Expand the board by only 1 follower.
Yeah, keeping some low-cost followers in hand, I like it, because it is fuel for such things as drawing more Demon Eaters, Soul Conversions, or Rushes with Yaktar.
Exactly. Also in the sense that if Baad passes turn again... Revelation. That was such a good revelation, but I was going to say if Baad passes turn again, you don't, as Meow, you don't want to stop yourself from playing a top deck Eater or anything like that. But that was a beautiful revelation, clearing everything. Even the Bone Chimera that had been saved since the beginning of the game is now dead.
Yeah, and I think part of it was Baad's observation that Revelation, right before Meow hits turn 7, is only weak to rebuilding with Thane, but even then it denies damage from Thane, as opposed to building like a follower to remove things instead of playing the Revelation.
Death's Breath, a pretty modestly okay rebuild here. It's a 6/9 in stats, along with a Skull Dog next to it. Okay, not bad.
I think Death's Breath is actually a pretty confident card to go for, because it just occurred to me that Baad doesn't play Hungering Horde in here.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Find out Shadow without it.
That is a very interesting observation, yes. It's a card that you would normally expect in pretty much all control decks, all control blood, sorry, so that is a blood card. You would expect that in most all control bloods, because, you know, it wipes most token generators off the board, and it does wipe Death's Breath completely, so.
Yeah, and with Shadow and Forest being 2 classes that seem so popular, I think that's a very interesting decision to use Vampiric Kiss instead. But I think that play from Baad
This is one of the easiest zombie parties I've ever seen, I think.
Perhaps. Gotta make sure he doesn't miss it, you know? I think that was an interesting turn to see from Baad there. Not in Vengeance, so I don't think that Baad would have committed a second Revelation even so. So without really any options, like Hungering Horde, which would be pretty useful, just a little helpful here. We see an Evolve go onto a Baphomet just to mitigate damage a little bit. So I wonder what it is that she was afraid of and evolving into. I mean, perhaps she just doesn't want Meow to mount an Yaktar for more damage. But does she have a better response here, I wonder? Right. So she is at the turn at which she could play Revelation. Goes for a Belphegor.
Okay, interesting.
Now, putting herself into Vengeance makes me wonder, is a Righteous Devil or something like that in her hand? Because that would be a significant turn. Diabolic Drain helps a little bit, but the way I see Baad playing now is one that implies a lack of, or an hesitance to use particularly good answers to these zombies.
Right, and Zombie Party is just gonna. Ooh, okay, never mind. Demon Eater creates. Okay, so Soul Eater is probably gonna be the answer to this Belphegor, since you don't want to get completely wiped out here, and then Catacomb can come out after to keep the board intact. This is actually looking great for Meow now. Very, very sticky board, very, very hard to answer or bad. Not even on the Bahamut turn, can't even answer that way.
Yeah, it seems we're seeing Meow in a much more comfortable position than we've seen throughout these last few games. But we've seen no particularly reactive tempo swing coming from Baad. These evolves haven't removed much damage from board. And evolving aggressively, setting Baad to 4 health with a board that
really,
sticks
really
with the
good
skeletons.
for Meow, actually.
How do you come back from this, I wonder? It would take a revelation and some. One's already been played?
It would take
an
evolve on a
Revelation,
Scarlet
just
Saboir after a revelation happening, yeah.
Okay. So I guess we have to assume a revelation has to happen, but she doesn't have it. She heals as much as she can. That smells to me like fear. There is no Eactor to push this all through, but...
True that. Fortunately for Baad, that Eactor not in hand. Could still put him down at 2, though.
Yeah, there are trades that can happen here. This Thane isn't completely denied from the board, but only 1 white would really come out of it without some extensive trading. I see merit in simply playing Darkblade Fiend alongside Zombie Party here.
I think this entire turn is just extremely interesting. I think for the most part you do want to go face. Baad's list. She's not playing a Zazel or something. There's nothing weird you can die to randomly, right? And any other board clear option, like Bahamut or Revelation, not only wipes that Temptress Vampire off for you, but it also leaves you in a spot where you don't have to worry because you have skeletons anyway, so...
So I think this really just comes down to that final choice of aggression. Not going for the Thane, because that would inevitably mean, giving up his own board that's already so hard to take care of. I think the Saber Altar, alongside a little bit of trading.
Making room. He is trading a little bit. He's going to kill this. Okay.
Interesting. So he's committing more of his hand. I think what he wants room for is probably this Thane. He knows if he has the freedom after this all gets cleared to get some damage off of the skeletons that are residual, then that could be another new source of damage if he loses this board.
That was really interesting, though, because he only has 2 skeletons now, which only pushes 4 with the evolve when before he could have set up a lethal.
He plays Immortal Thane and evolves the Thane here.
Oh, right.
So did Meow have Bahamut in mind by making that play is what I'm now wondering. Because I think that was a brilliant way to play that last turn.
This is weird. Like, the way I was talking about also played around Bahamut. In a more direct sense. This is more of a creative lethal, I think, really, if anything.
For sure. This is one of the most unorthodox lethals I've seen, considering that Meow had to take into consideration the board space that he wanted to open up last turn, alongside how much damage he had to get faced. But yeah, we're seeing that variance. Meow felt comfortable that whole game. Baad didn't really seem to have the right answers to just get rid of this very sticky board. But that said, though Meow might... have brought this to tournament point. This is Meow's nightmare. You have to beat one of these 2 with sword.
Right. This
now,
is,
how do
this
you
is
do
the
that?
true nightmare. Because while Shadow has ways to, play Catacomb, it can play Bone Chimera, it can play things that survive after a Bahamut wipe. Sword doesn't have that. The best thing Sword's got close to that is Geno, an enhanced Geno that didn't die on the attack, so...
Tristan of the Round Table, perhaps?
Yeah, Tristan. Nice. Good meme. Good meme, mofo. Good meme.
At most, I think that's their only other last words than Geno. But yeah, as you're saying, Sword does not really persist upon a board. It seems the class is much more built around constantly reflooding, but if that turns it into a question of a resource exchange, Sword can't last here.
True that. And unfortunately, for what could be the last game, we are still in the dark as far as Baad's hand goes, unfortunately. But I think we've seen enough of her list to know what could happen, so.
I think we've seen a couple of games where Baad has more or less drawn the entirety of it. It just comes down to memory and variance now.
For the most part, right? We have access to her complete blood list, so we could just play Minesweeper every turn, guessing what comes out, on curve.
If you hit a Bahamut, you lose, you know.
Bahamuts are the bombs.
You have
the
a
mines,
warning,
yeah.
like... Pure-Hearted Singer is a pretty innocent way to try to cycle here, but it's also a very slow response to a 2-drop on curve from Sword.
Pure-Hearted Singer, I mean, I don't know, you say innocent, I say thanks for the +1. You know, Pure-Hearted Singer is a way to get ahead in cards, which could be instrumental in winning.
It could be the difference between a Vampiric Kiss in hand on this turn or not, so... Absolutely.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Did you like it?
Which would
Blood.
definitely curb the reaction. Ooh. Blood Moon coming down to sort of tell Meow, like, hey, hit me in the face really hard this turn, because I'm in Vengeance anyway.
Right.
So I wonder what Baad is going to react with. Maybe a Revelation, even?
I think Revelation is a very high possibility because Meow is just simply taking this fully as an invitation to continue fighting.
What would be an amazing punish, I would love to see this, would be a Diabolic Drain into Righteous Devil, please.
Opposite order.
Never
perhaps.
mind
Ooh,
Revelation, okay. Alright.
That attacking with everything, I think, was correct. I think that withholding anything and giving Baad the option to conserve the Revelation definitely would have set Baad ahead a little bit based on what her hand might look like.
Right, and then Albertot deck was huge actually because Meow can evolve that for 5 this turn and evolve the Alweda's next turn for 5 if Baad does not heal or set up a ward. This could actually end the game. Never mind, Sablor.
Okay. Sabror does a fair amount. It survives on the board here.
That was close. That was really close.
That it was. I think Meow just reached out and sort of scraped the edge of Baad's
Meow
life.
saw blood, dude. Meow was like, I'm going in. Hold my beer. I'm going in.
Reminder, this round table can only pull Mars and White Paladin. It's a very reactive round table. It is not a source of more damage.
It's not double
Well,
Juliet, the one we've grown used to.
Right. The one that usually comes on top of an ephemera. That's not this kind of game.
Yeah, we're not playing that kind of Shadowverse. So Whole Soul Swing answers the Bane here. Alweda's Council Card Knights probably answers it the best, I think, since you just throw the 1/3 in, probably, right?
That is a loss of a quick attacker, though.
It's true.
I think there
that is true.
is a universe in which this 1/3 is going face. But I don't say that with particular confidence. Meow has a lot to think about here.
There's a line of play, for sure, I think. Alweda's, Quick Blader's not played, so Alweda's is hard to stick next to a Storm Follower.
I think Meow has made a very interesting read and decision here to say, the Scarlet Saber is not going to make the difference between whether I win or lose. It's all in the count. Baad will continue to have answers, so I just simply have to win before any more of them come out.
Also, to correct myself, he does actually have Quick Bladers, so if one is top decked, he could come up with 6 Storm.
Indeed. Now, does Baad have a way? So, Vengeance is active for Baad here. I think healing is the most important thing to watch for.
Healing is definitely important. Yes, healing is very, very important. In a world where Bane exists, healing, in a sense, is much more effective than wards. And there's Diabolic Drain, healing plus removal. Obviously, insanely good. Another Saboir. Wow, nice.
I think that's very huge for Baad. 2 heals. Blood Moon goes away, but stays in Vengeance. So a lot of options. 4 or 5 Bane can deal with anything, really. Or any size of body. Another Albert wouldn't hurt here. Lux is a refill on damage, though.
Right, Lux is
are
guaranteed to find an Albert, I do believe, the way she's worded, so...
I think, the first half of it...
No, she actually... Yeah.
Yeah.
She may not, actually.
There's 2 Alberts left, and she's going to be fishing for it between 2 more White Paladins and 3 Marses. As the second... Ooh, I think as we're contemplating that line of thought, Meow just played in the way that most lends itself to giving him an Albert, but didn't find it.
but didn't find it. It feels bad, man.
In this deck of 2 Alberts, but he still doesn't feel like it. Very interesting play, though. I think that type of deck manipulation is a really cool thing to see. It's not a very common thing to see players do in Shadowverse.
Mm-hmm. Interesting for sure. Saboir can just kill one of these Marses, but that won't matter much. Baad is still in a really, really bad spot, you know? Like, she has to be stuck between clearing and hand healing, and she doesn't have any evolves left.
Mm-hmm. The last turn was extremely powerful with this Scarlet Subform, but it was also the last promise of power. She might want another Diabolic Drain, having used one already, and only 13 cards into her deck. There can only be so many answers at once. Every single win condition in this hand just slows her down.
Huge, huge card that would be great here would be a Belphegor. Could draw into more healing. Going face, Revelation, or happening? Yeah, okay, alright.
I think Revelation and drawing, I think, is telltale of a lot of fear.
Ooh! Oh god, that's so close. Oh no.
So...
Oh no.
Throwing the Aloidas down right now to get as much damage as possible to try to play around any healing next turn, I think is a big part of this. Does Meow also Whole Souled Swing? I think that Pure-Hearted Singer is going to get her last words anyway. He could get a Knight, which is a little bit more damage. I think Meow actually has a perfectly clean and easy to reach way to win here.
This could literally just be... Nothing works here, right? Even Temptress Vampire on the 3/2 doesn't work.
I think it has to be. What does it have to be?
She has no evolves.
Vampiric Kiss into another Vampiric Kiss. No, we've already seen one, haven't we? Alright, on the Lyriel.
She would need Vampiric Kiss on the 3/2, Diabolic Drain on the 2/3, and then Saboir on the 1/1.
That would mean so many copies of those exact cards would have to have been in her top 16.
That didn't go on the 3/2, so Vampiric Kiss happened also.
One more and she's not dead.
That's
I
not gonna. They can't find Saboir.
Oh,
that's lethal. She passed turn.
Close.
She passed turn. Albert ends the game. Oh my gosh! What?
The Whole Souled Swing made the difference.
It did. The Knight made the difference.
Absolutely fantastic.
Meow ends up taking it on the reset 2-0. Control Blood just could not quite get the options available. And I like the way that you guys worded the Knight made the difference, as if he was just this bumbling fool this whole time and nobody believed in him.
Bumbling Knight.
That's a fairy tale in Shadowverse form right there. The Knights finally made it. What a crazy game! Despite all of the things that